We're live. Alex, can you hear me?
Perfect. Yep, I hear you.
Awesome. It works. You never know with these live streams if they're going to work or not.
That is true. Very true.
So, Bob Cooney here. As you probably know, I am super excited to spend the next hour or so with Alex Russell, who's the founder, co-founder,
Co-founder, vrCAVE.
co-founder. I want to be respectful of all founders and co-founders because I know how hard it is, of vrCAVE, who is the leading provider of VR escape rooms in the world that I can tell. And if somebody wants to challenge me on that, feel free to try to do that. Yeah, we're going to dive deep into just kind of the history of the company and how you got started. And one of the things I'm super impressed about is how you've really achieved scale and velocity in this business, which I have said is one of the hardest things to do in the VR business in general. And so we're gonna talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Thanks for joining.
Oh, happy to be here.
So look, let's start. And by the way, I want everybody to know we're live streaming to YouTube and LinkedIn Live and Facebook. If you have comments or questions, feel free to just post them in the chat or the comments. If you're watching this on social media, we should get them all. We're using StreamYard, which, despite their ever increasing prices, seems to be the best platform out there for this. And so let's just start with kind of like the origin story. What sparked the idea behind vrCAVE? Like, how did it all start?
Yeah, a lot of different ways to kind of approach it and stuff. I'd say it's like many. It's like, always had the dream of doing a startup, and the journey kind of began in 2015. My brother and I, brother being my co-founder at vrCAVE, we got our hands on the very first VR headsets for us, which is the Oculus Rift DK2 development kit 2. I jumped into virtual reality and blown away by the immersion that it offered. And I remember describing it back then. It was like being very much inside the video game, which was amazing. And after kind of trying out with a bit of virtual reality, it's one of the things that you shouldn't be doing when starting a business, where you start off with a technology or a product, and then you go in search of a market for it. So we actually sat down. I remember distinctly sitting in the living room and be like, okay, what can we do with virtual reality and where it makes the most sense? And we certainly felt simulation as where it did well. And while I think it has awesome applications within kind of hard skills, training and things like that, we figured virtual reality would take quite a bit of while to get deep adoption. So entertainment made sense as a great starting point.
Now, what year was this?
This would have been 2015 going into 2016.
Wow. Yeah, wow, really early.
So yeah, we were like, okay, let's start entertainment, because people will pay for an incomplete product if they're getting the latest and greatest. So very much we've always been on the bleeding edge here. So our very first product, or minimum viable product, we created a 2-player 10-minute VR haunted house experience called Hospital of Horror. And that one ran in the Halloween season of 2016. And I remember we got the very first production. We got 2 VR backpacks, the very first production run of VR backpacks that were available, which is kind of like a modified laptop, gaming laptop that goes on your back. Those were XMG walkers way back when. So we started off with a 2-player system, ran for the month of October, did tremendously well. And we actually were using the HTC Vive back then. And very successful kind of first foray into virtual reality. And then as soon as November hit, zero interest, and specifically zero interest for horror. So we went from there. We're like, okay, we have something. We have, we able to get sales and stuff, and sales is amongst the toughest stuff to kind of start with. So we're like, okay, where can we pivot this platform so that we're not so seasonal? And we had a bit of a choice to go like, oh, we could go like a Christmas season one, St. Patrick's Day, Easter one, or we could do something that's kind of year round. And
nothing for Bob's birthday. You weren't thinking about the Bob Cooney birthday celebration.
No. So we figured escape rooms were a good way of going. Went from 2-player to a 4-player system, and launched our first escape room July 4th, 2017, and then been releasing a new escape room every year since then.
Yeah, wow. Now, I saw you guys for the first time at IAPA in Orlando, and I want to say it was 2017. What was the first year you showed this at a show?
Oh, I want to say it was 2018 probably, yeah.
Might have been, okay. Yeah, and you had backpacks, you had a 4-player, you had the Tiberian space station experience, which I thought was amazing. And I was really impressed back then, and everybody knows I can be hard to impress. But what I loved about what you did there was, playing with physics of like you had to throw tools to each other in zero gravity, and one person was kind of blocking these meteorites coming in, and somebody else was trying to fix these things. And so it was the first VR game that I'd experienced that really emphasized teamwork and put us in an environment that was very different. You couldn't possibly do that in a real physical escape room. And so when you built your first experience, what was it about that made you decide, or maybe it was when you started selling it or whatever, that you were gonna, stay with escape rooms versus, oh yeah, we did an escape game, now let's do a zombie shooter, or now let's do a PvP game, which is what a lot of the other platforms are doing?
Yeah. So kind of in starting with escape room, Space Station Tiberia being our first one, being outer space on a space station, of course. And we started with that concept. And as we kind of approached the escape room kind of genre, we wanted to ensure that we did stuff that would be tough to do on Earth, or I guess in a real life escape room. So space was like a natural fit for that. Zero gravity, very tough to replicate here. So that's why that was the first one. And then Depths of Osiris, you're underwater, there's sharks. That's tough to do elsewise. And then even the third one, Dragon Tower, where it's like, okay, adding dragons in there and stuff, and mixing potions and getting cool kind of effects. And it's like, okay. And then with IAPA 2018, I remember we just launched Laser Bots, which is their first and probably only so far non-escape room game. And that was so that one's like a puzzle arcade game. You're bouncing lasers back at waves of robots, and that game was supposed to accomplish many things. So it was meant to have something available for a younger demographic, very simple controls, no full introduction and stuff. Something that could have replayability. Is challenge levels. It's still cooperative and everything. And then it could even have some educational elements. There's physics and angles of reflection and angles of refraction and things like that. And once we released that one, because customers were asking for something for younger, something for replayable, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is all right. When's your next escape room coming out? It's like, okay, so you've asked for these things, but you're really looking for us to fill that escape room niche. So it's like, okay, let's focus on the escape rooms, taking our customer feedback and continue developing on that product.
So I want to dive into that, because you just brought up a really important point that I don't want to gloss over, because I get it all the time. So customers were asking for something. You gave them the thing they thought they wanted, and it turned out that that's not really what they wanted. Is that a fair characterization of that experience?
I would say so. It's something I've always described as with customers, clients, things like that. They have a vague sense of what they want and a definite sense of what they don't want. And you only are able to kind of find that difference between the two by actually bringing something in front of them. You're like, okay, is this what you're looking for? Oh, no. It's like, okay, this allows the conversation then to shift.
So when they were asking for, so what were they asking for specifically that led you to LaserBots? I'm curious.
It was something for, so some of the constraints of the escape room demographic is that generally the escape room demographic hits 16 or 18 to 35-year-olds, equal male, female. They kind of play for different reasons. And now when it comes to like family entertainment centers, birthday parties are big. And like there's a birthday party arms race for little kids and the parents, of course. So having something that could be good for birthday parties, for younger demographic, and also one challenge with escape rooms, which people have tried it in several different ways. We haven't seen a great solution for it yet, is that escape rooms are pretty much a one-shot go. So once you've played an escape room, you're very unlikely to do it again. Even if you got halfway through it or 90%, people would rather play a new escape room than go back to a previous one. So getting the replayability, getting a younger demographic in there was trying to get both those achieved within LaserBots. And while it does those things, I'd say we're very much known much more for the escape rooms that we make than for LaserBots.
And so what would your advice be to somebody who's like, in this market or really in any market with a startup, and they're getting all this feedback from customers, and how do you parse it to understand what do you actually put in your product roadmap, and what do you just kind of smile and nod and say maybe later?
Yeah, so lots of things to kind of look at for that. So if I were to give a smattering of some thoughts in that direction, having minimum viable products. So you develop a prototype and get it in front of people as soon as you can. That will help prevent you from going down deep rabbit holes of development, thinking this is what they've wanted, assuming of what they've said is exactly these kind of requirements. So we did early and often play testing, and still do with our games, where it's like, okay, and I can clarify it here as well, as that I think this is actually a double-sided market. You have the businesses you sell to, and also you have the player base. So you need something that's fun and something that operators want as well. Now, if you make something that's super fun, operators will it's like, okay, if players are going to come in, great, I'll get over a chunk of headaches. We get a lot of feedback kind of from operators. It's also important to get the feedback from the players, and getting something in front of them early, so that they can have something tangible to test against. It's super, super important for that. And there's quite a process to get something full. And I always say when you're 90% of the way there, you're about halfway done. There's so much polish at the end.
I think Kylie back pushing the new update to the VR Collective website is probably nodding and smiling at that comment. So when you get this feedback, you're having to balance player or consumer feedback with operator feedback. I assume you've got how many locations now?
we're somewhere between 250 and 260 locations now running our
So
games.
more than 250 locations. I'm assuming getting operator feedback now is easy. How do you get player feedback? Do you operate your own location, or like what's your method for that?
Yeah, so it's kind of twofold. An amount of player feedback will feedback through the operators. They're like, oh, okay, we've had players doing this, or like we're getting these comments back from our players, and that's their customers, so they're paid points. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we can go and get these in, and then we do run our own full testing as well. We have opted not to run our own location because we very much want to focus on kind of being this software provider and having a split focus between being an operator and that's an entirely different business than being a software development studio making a scalable platform. So we decided to kind of focus on that, and then we have regular testing throughout the year as well to bring players in, get them testing, things like that. And I would say a lot of the strong feedback we get is from our partner locations all around the world. Like, I'll give one example of early on. It's like released Space Station Tiberia. I did very well, and then we did Depths of Osiris, and one of the feedback we got was like, oh, okay, it's like in Space Station Tiberia, there's a kind of nice climactic end to it, and Depths of Osiris ended much more in kind of a puzzle and logical one. And it's like, oh, okay, people are actually looking for a big finale. And so then come Dragon Tower, let's go incorporate dragons, have a big dragon finale and stuff. And hearing that specifically from our partner locations and regularly gaining that super, super valuable.
Yeah, that's something that I've been disappointed with in a lot of games that I've done, where there's just no climax, there's no ending. And it's like, it's such an important part of, especially for, your experiences run up to an hour, right? You've invested all this time in this thing. You want some release at the end. And so, yeah, it's really good insight. We have a question, which I think is a really good one, which is talking about length of experience. And I might expand upon this a little bit, which is, escape rooms generally are an hour. I talk a lot about if you're going to be a destination, the experience has to be about an hour. If you go onto Fever's website, which is kind of like the directory of VR, of immersive entertainment experiences globally, all the experiences, it says about an hour. And so, but with escape rooms, and having them be in software, you can scale that, right? You can do 15, 30, 45 hour long experiences. How do you think about that? How do operators use it as kind of a superpower of doing this in virtual reality?
Yeah, great question. So kind of experience length matters depending on the type of operations you're with. So generally speaking, if you're like an escape room business, having hour-long experiences or fitting with all your bookings within the hour is kind of key with that. And ensuring within the gameplay experience, there's enough kind of varied activities and story driving kind of whole bunch of engagement and immersion within the environments. Super, super important. And then if you look at kind of some other ones where it's like, okay, like with arcades, some are looking specifically for an escape room experience. Some are just looking for a taste of kind of puzzles and things like that. So being able to run the games at half an hour or 15, or in certain like family entertainment centers or destinations, you're actually looking for high throughput, where you're like 15 minutes in and then 5 minutes out, next group, and away you go. So the nice thing with kind of the escape rooms, there's a lot of different kind of experiences kind of packed into our 45, 60-minute experience. And you can actually even run the games as just a single room. A single room is anywhere from like 5 to 15 minutes. So some rooms are easier, some rooms are harder. So there's kind of something for everyone in it. And Generally speaking, I'd say we tend towards the 45 to 60 minute mark for it, and uh, and lots of players and having a very high comfort experience with it as well. And that's a bit of a challenge with some VR games as well, where it's like, okay, the player comfort isn't put in there.
So talk a little bit about that. When you say player comfort, what do you mean? I think a lot of people could interpret that a lot of ways.
Yeah. So I guess there's a couple of ways of putting it. One is like physically, how are they feeling? Not just kind of the optics of it, but like back in the day, there's VR backpacks, heavy and clunky and quite hot on your back and stuff. And then how comfortable is the headset on the players? There's kind of those levels of comfort, and then like actual within the game experience itself, if there's any VR sickness that is happening. And we certainly noticed, like right as we got into the beginning of the this kind of new gold rush for virtual reality, is that VR sickness was going to be something that would have to be kind of contended with. So VR sickness is caused by a number of things. But basically, it's the symptom is like players get nausea going through a experience while in virtual reality, and it comes when there's a disconnect between what the eye see and the kind of the subconscious experiences, and then what is actually the case. So things that will cause that will be like a roller coaster experience, because the world moves around you, but your inner ear is telling you it's not actually moving around. Another one is on the more technical side, like dropped frames. If the frame rate drops too low, there's nausea coming as well, because there's a delay between you moving your head and what you're actually perceiving and stuff. And this has been quite a design thing that we've had to contend with the entire time. And because if our players going in there for 45 minutes, they don't want to be nauseous within the first 5 minutes or in the first 10. So it needs to be a comfortable experience the entire way. And there are ways you can get around it if you have shorter experiences. But if you swap out too short of an experience, then the amount of time overhead you have switching people into VR, out of VR, wiping the things down, resetting the system, next person, you're paying a lot more in operations time.
Yeah. Is motion sickness still an issue in some venues for some customers, 8, 9, 10 years into the business now, where it feels like we've developed best practices in the industry to avoid it? Is it still a challenge as a developer?
So I certainly notice when we bring on new developers, and it's like, oh, okay, let's go build out these puzzles. And they're like, oh, can we do this? Like, oh, no, that breaks 3 out of 10 do not go rules for VR stuff. So I would say it's VR to some degree. I liken it to mobile gaming, where it's like when the first games ended up on smartphones and stuff, it's like, oh, what games make the most sense? And Solitaire were easy ones at the beginning. It's like, oh, okay, that's not all that good. And then Zynga came along with like Clash of Clans and Farmville and all those games. Like, oh, okay, this is how you can actually leverage the platform. And you can't do everything on mobile gaming compared to like PC gaming and stuff. Or console gaming. And it's like, okay, there's design practices that went into mobile, a lot of stuff with user interface and stuff as well. And virtual reality has gotten the same. And I'd say sometimes when I see new entrants into the VR market, they're not always looking at like, oh, okay, well, the frames drop here a chunk, but it shouldn't be that much of an issue. It's like, can be quite an issue. So yeah, good principles to have, but it's much more.
You mentioned new developers coming to the team. Mike has a question about how big the team is at the moment right now.
Yeah, so these days we have 22 full-time staff. So busy. Much of it's on the development team, so that we can continue creating great games and stuff, and getting new ideas in all the time.
Yeah, cool. Now, you mentioned early on you add a game a year. You've been doing that. I think you're at 9 games now, I think, or maybe 10 with
9
Laser
escape
Box.
room games, and then 11 if you include Hospital of Horror and Laserbots.
Yeah. And so, you know, we've had this conversation maybe a year or two ago about your content library, where most companies, when I talk to them about their library and game popularity within a given library, there are clear winners. There's 1 or 2 games that are, they're 80% of the catalog, and then everything else is almost like niche filler content for the long tail of customers. You're the only company that I'm aware of that has a very different, user base around the content, like how it plays out. It's almost level. Talk about that now. Is that still the case, and why you think that is?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's any, like, very often in lots of places there's the Pareto distribution, the 80-20. So 80% of the plays come from 20% of the games, and that hasn't been the case for us. Like, I'd say our most popular game we've seen is Manner of Escape, which was escape room number 5 for us, and I think it does quite well because horror and scariness fits quite well. So that has a number of those kind of elements to it. And seeing those numbers and lots of customer feedback, again, it's like, oh, okay, alien infection. So we went horror and sci-fi again. And I think something we've very much focused on is we say we are releasing a new game every year, and it's not coming out every June 1st or every November 1st. It comes out when it's ready. So
I love that.
So we're never rushing something out if we don't feel that it will present vrCAVE well. If it's not up to the standard of the previous games, if it doesn't grow in terms of capabilities, try out new ideas in the space, we don't release it. So we're very focused kind of on quality and innovation.
Have you gotten down a development path with something and just wound up killing it?
Yeah, so anything with kind of content development and stuff, like, we get lots of recommendations, and I can kind of say as an aside, we do get a lot of by being deeply engaged in the creative process, you get a bunch of kind of ideas spawning off on the side, like, oh, this would be a cool idea. Doesn't fit in this game, but let's put it later. I recall with Dragon Tower, we had thought of like having different player classes going into it, and different abilities, and having kind of cool effects, and didn't fit in the game. Showed up 3 games later in Pirate's Plague. And we're careful with a lot of our planning process, but there's always things that end up on the cutting room floor. And whenever you kind of first get the game in front of players for the first time, you hold your breath, like, all right, let's go play it. Let's hope this is fun. And then, like, oh, okay, where are people getting frustrated? Oh, okay, this is nowhere near as intuitive as we thought it was. Oh, okay, let's go rewrite this one. Oh, okay, there's this section. Yeah. All right, we got to cut that section out. Let's go add this. Like, oh, this game is happening too fast. All right, let's add a full new section into this and stuff. So getting that player feedback early helps you from going too far deep down the rabbit hole and being kind of own invested in kind of where you've gone. And yeah, that sunk cost fallacy where you're doubling down because you've already spent so much time there.
So much of that. Yeah, it was a great lesson. So, you know what I love about what I do is sometimes magic happens and deals emerge. And we just got a comment from somebody with RV, who's basically, and RV is kind of the big room scale VR company that's been around for a long time. And they think you're the best in the standalone free roam space and would love to chat about a possible partnership. Our clients are always asking for great content So make sure you guys connect after the event, and maybe magic will happen. I love it.
Very cool.
So let's talk a little bit about the industry in general. So, I have operators call me all the time, and they're like, "Yeah, we really, we want free roam escape rooms." And I'm like, "All right, go to vrCAVE," and they call you up, and they're like, "Oh, the territory is not available. Let's start there." Why did you decide? You're one of the only companies, and maybe the only company in the compact free roam space, or what I call the compact free roam space, to offer exclusive territories for operators. Why did you do that, and how's it worked, and what's happening in that, with that business mechanic within your company?
Yeah. Exclusivity has always kind of been a feature for the vrCAVE from day one. And asked by customers, and understandably so, of course, they're like, okay, if I'm going to invest and buy it into your product, and if I'm going to spend marketing there, I want to make sure that the players come to me, not to the other kind of providers next door and stuff. And the first core value we have at vrCAVE is treating customers as partners. If you invest in us, we invest in you, and let's have a win-win and work together on this. And I know that looking kind of at other companies that have some loose amount of exclusivity, where they'll get exclusivity in to kind of get the deal done. And it's not written down, there's no real policy, and a misunderstanding of it kind of forms later on. And we always wanted to be careful. It's like, okay, no, we need to ensure that let's have exclusivity regions. And we, rather than kind of like get too deep kind of into the paperwork, kind of, it's like, okay, we're going to go population based. And we have the standard of 300,000 people as kind of the exclusive region stuff. So when you sign on, you can rest assured that you can safely invest in the product, invest in your marketing, invest in this, and you'll be the only one that will be reaping the benefits of those rewards.
Yeah.
And I think of kind of holding on to that as a strategy and stuff has been important, because I recall when it comes to kind of strategy and running a business and stuff, I recall looking at the case of Apple. Apple, famous for having a closed ecosystem, and they've gotten flack over it for decades, where they could have opened up the system, brought in a lot more developers, could have expanded very rapidly, and then it would have lost amount of the Apple magic and the tight integration of its ecosystem and all that stuff. So nowadays it can be seen as an amazing strategy because it's worked out. And so we've seen great success with it, and we very much kind of hold that kind of core to our strategy, and expect kind of like this is a unique thing to kind of differentiate us in the space, because I'd say one challenge in the space is that there can be lots of games, and it's like, okay, well, there's always a race to having the most games at your business. It's not always about having the most games, but having the games that people want to play and people knowing which games they need to be playing at your establishment.
Yeah, that's a truth bomb right there that I've been talking about for a long time, which is, well, after a while, it's like Netflix. There's so much to watch. What do you watch, right? And consumers want a little bit of choice, but not too much choice. And there's a lot of research around that. And so, how do you think it's affected your growth? Has it slowed your growth? Do you think it's accelerated your growth? What's the impact been on the growth rate?
Yeah. Good question. I would say there's ways that it has helped and ways that it has hindered, of course. So I'd say on the helping side, people that sign into vrCAVE can be rest assured. They're like, okay, knowing that exclusivity is there, you guys have my back. That provides a good amount of kind of confidence behind being able to invest deep into the relationship and everything. And then certainly as we've grown larger and larger and expanded out, they hear about our escape room games, like, oh, cool. And something we've learned is that location-based entertainment providers and entertainment operators, they always check out kind of what everyone else is doing in this space. They'll check out all the businesses. If they're on vacation, they'll check out all the businesses there as well. So by being in so many locations, the word gets out much more there as well. So while it does provide some headwinds for having unlimited growth, it does help us providing all the support needed to our partners versus providing it to everyone. There's a phrase and strategy that I like. It's if everyone's your customer, then no one's your customer.
This is true. You're taking all the stuff that I've said for the years and condensing it into great sound bites. I love it. Let's talk about, now you guys started, you talked about backpacks and PC, and we didn't talk about what that means, right? For those, most people probably know, but you were in the PC VR realm in the early days, and then over the last several years, standalone headsets where everything is rendered on a mobile chipset without having a PC for each headset have become more and more popular. It's obviously cheaper to deploy. They're easier to run and maintain and operate. What's happened? Yet you're still supporting your PC VR clients. You haven't forced them to convert. In fact, you release PC VR games first before you release them to standalone, which I think is an interesting strategy. What have you found? What insights have you guys gained as a company moving from PC VR to standalone headsets?
Yeah. So as a company, we've always tried to remain on the bleeding edge, and we're hardware agnostic, as we call it. So we very much focus on creating the software, creating the best games. And then whenever a new headset kind of came out, we looked at like, okay, is this a great headset? Are people asking for it? Are the features are there and stuff? And we did get an early version of the Oculus Quest 1, or Oculus Quest when it was back in the day. And I was like, oh, okay. I remember when we got Space Station Tiberia on, it's like, oh, this looks almost identical. And the graphics were nearly identical in that one. Now, we had to do some downscaling since then, but it's impressive to see you could do that without having a backpack. Kind of the tipping, we saw the tipping point. We did release the standalone version fall 2019, and didn't get much traction until kind of after kind of 2020, 2021. And I'd say like it made a lot of sense for the vrCAVE partners to look at standalone headsets, because if you went with a backpack system, $25,000, $30,000 for all the hardware and equipment, and then you got to pay for software. And then on the standalone system, depending on the type, maybe $5,000, $8,000, you have all the hardware and equipment you need, and then you can pay for software. And the price difference you can charge for players is minimal. So it's like players won't pay twice or three times the price for a PC VR streamed experience, as long as the immersion is there.
Are you seeing a difference in price point between the PC VR installed base and the standalone at all?
Not too much. We do see some holding on to it where it's like, oh, okay, now this is a kind of premium experience, and they may have other kind of premium experiences, like zero latency would be an example of a premium streamed PC VR experience. It's like, okay, well, that's kind of is a stake in the ground for that pricing, and then you can kind of base other pricing based on it. Sandbox VR is similar thoughts as well. So while I think you could charge maybe a bit more for PC VR, it's almost identical between the two pricing, I would say.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I've watched the only other company I know of that's switched from PCVR to standalone, but they haven't kept the PCVR, I don't think, was Xcurio with these big, large free roam Horizon of Khufu things. And they went from backpacks to standalone, and because you can't stream to 100 headsets. And I've looked at the Google reviews. They're exactly the same. The price per game is exactly the same. And so when you shifted to standalone, did you see your growth rate increase by dropping the cost of entry?
Oh, yeah, very much so. We also, pricing kind of changes over time as well. It's like, okay, we used to kind of have like pricing more similar, like, okay, you go buy a title, unlimited use. So having a software version of a kind of arcade cabinet, like, oh, this is a revenue generator here, and then you go for the subscription. And we've changed the pricing around a bit so that's like, okay, it's easier to get in, easier to get started, and then price per minute or pay per player has kind of become standard or most common, I would say, with it. And the interesting thing, shift-wise, technology-wise, is most locations that sign on today, they're looking kind of just on the standalone side. But I can see a case where the PC VR can come back because the streaming technology is coming much, much stronger. HTC Vive's with their Focus series has really done a lot to kind of get that streaming experience back. So you get the benefits of the PC VR stuff while also getting the lightweight of having the standalone headset. So it's like, oh, okay, there's a case for the holding on to the PC and then allowing us to kind of, once again, stay hardware agnostic has allowed us to allow for when technology kind of catches up. It's like, okay, we can go back to PC VR as well.
Yeah. What are you seeing in the headset space now? Like, what do you, because I know you support Quest, which obviously is a price leader, and a lot of operators like the idea of the cheap price point, despite my constant suggesting they don't do that because of calibration issues, which maybe you guys have solved. You've got HTC Focus on the high end. You've got Pico now coming back into the market, and I know you were trying to get that ready for the VR Summit last month. What do you see on the headset landscape? What do you push people towards a certain one, and why is that?
Yeah. So whenever we kind of decide to support another headset, it's always like, oh, okay, is there customer pull pulling us there? We're very careful not to be like, okay, let's go do this and then push it out to our customers. And market pull is always kind of a good way of going. So on the PC VR side, one nice thing with it architecture-wise is they had OpenXR and Steam VR and things like that, which allowed for a single platform, and a bunch of headsets are all kind of supported within that platform. So it made development much, much easier. And then the first kind of on the breakaway on the standalone side was the Oculus Quest. So we were able to kind of launch that, and then we had customer pull there. And then after about a year there, it's like, oh, there's Vive Focus 3 that came out, and getting customer pull there. And I'd say out of all the headsets providers from our experience so far, I think HTC's gotten the commercial and enterprise VR space the most correct. Oculus has tried. Pico's looking in that angle as well. And HTC is very much a trusted brand among VR arcades as well. So they've made great kind of commercial headsets and wonderful kind of software features for it as well. Quest has its own kind of things with, it's easy to get the Meta Quest anywhere. And probably $1 per value, it's probably the best headset. Calibration could be stronger. And then, we're seeing Pico become more popular, especially in Europe. So there's quite a pull there once again as well. And so we just added Pico for Ultra Enterprise support with our latest release.
Yeah, cool. And what have you been able to do anything to get the Quest more reliable from a tracking and calibration standpoint? and if you do, because I've talking to companies all the time that are kind of like coming up with their own hacked solutions to make Quest work because of the hand tracking is so good. Like there are components of that kit that are best in the industry just because they're putting 10 billion a year into R&D. How have you worked with that?
Yeah, I'd say one challenge with MetaQuest, or a feature with MetaQuest, is that since Facebook kind of owns them, they have a move fast and break things, and certainly been the case.
Which you don't want in location-based entertainment, by the way.
No. So like things can be fine for a while, and then like I can name some versions, like version 45 is where things change. Version 63 is where things change. And
is that PTSD?
A little bit. So it's now we're very careful in terms of like it is their software, their platform. So you never really want to hack into anything on it as well. It's kind of more like, okay, this is what's being spit out by the system. You kind of need to work with it. And we've learned through that as well. It's like a bunch of kind of best practices, like the tracking algorithm and calibration is quite a black box. So you pull what you can from academic papers and things like that. And you're like, oh, okay, these are kind of best practices. And seeing features come out like spatial anchors, which helps with tracking when it works. And being able to also like turn on and turn off that it ends up being very important. So yeah, we've looked at a whole bunch, and I'd say maybe one headwind that MetaQuest has is that it's trying to do a lot of stuff. Because so much is being asked of the chip, it's like, oh, okay, we want to do this and that. It's like, oh, okay, less and less is spent towards the tracking algorithm and calibration, because if you're just running single player at home, the calibration doesn't need to be amazing. Whereas like unlocking all the other features, quite valuable.
Yeah, interesting. What do you so recently? And sorry, we're geeking out a little bit here, but Android. So HTC, who've been they created the VR arcade industry in 2015, and then they've supported it ever since. They recently licensed all of their core tech for VR to Google, and who is integrated into the Android XR platform and an operating system. I'm curious your thoughts on that, and how you think that might play out for the industry.
Yeah. I think it's a play on, or a continuation of the deal made from HTC and Google years back, when HTC sold their entire cell phone division to Google. And cell phones, or technology behind the cell phones, is really what powers all the standalone headsets. And the Android architecture is what's also running, the Meta and stuff, and Pico. So it's like, okay, it's a nice, strong standard. It's making a lot of sense to kind of head in that direction. And there's always an interesting case of like, how much of a kind of closed, walled off garden do you want? I'd say Meta follows a good chunk of that, and versus kind of being a lot more open. And there's always a lot of innovation that can occur if you kind of open up the platform. Although if you want to kind of keep tight coupling and kind of lots of other reasons kind of going for the other platform. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how it goes. You never kind of, when you first hear, it's like, oh, okay, this could change everything. Or this was just a headline from a couple of years ago. It's like, I recall when the headsets first came out, Oculus Rift 1, HTC Vive. It's like, oh, okay, they're both good, and we'll see which one will take off. And there's always a slight edge given to the HTC Vive because it was that room scale, and the entire kind of industry, both in the home market and elsewhere, has kind of gone for that much more untethered stuff, and larger space is always valuable in virtual reality. So it was, seemingly one feature at the time, and then it ended up being quite the game changer between those two platforms. So never quite know what ends up being important until you have the benefits of hindsight.
Okay, last headset question. Anybody asking for Apple Vision Pro in the market? I think I know the answer to this, but
none of our customers. No one even like, oh, I'm thinking about having a premium VR arcade. Can you guys do this? It's like not even that question. So,
and if you're thinking about it, just don't.
Yeah, I'd say with the Apple Vision Pro, it's interesting. It's a case where it's like, oh, okay, it's bringing virtual reality, mixed reality, XR generally more into the mainstream, which is certainly helpful. Rising tide raises all boats. And it's so that's helpful there. Now, I'd say with Apple, the question is like, what's the headset for? Meta Quest is like, oh, we do lots of things, but mostly entertainment and gaming. Okay, what's the Apple Vision Pro for? What's that killer app? Why the Apple Vision Pro? And I think that question's still to be answered.
Yeah. So let's look in the future a little bit. What are you looking towards? A lot of founders get bored with their businesses, and sometimes before the market even knows who they are. And I see that often. I haven't seen that with you. You guys are really staying focused on building escape games and building the network. But look into the future. What do you think the next few years holds for vrCAVE?
Yeah, so certainly, like, there's lots more expansion we can be looking at. A lot more, both kind of in terms of the content, the games, and things like that. There's a bunch of interesting features that we'd love to look at integrating if it makes sense. And admittedly, like, a lot of things always come off with the trade-offs. Like, okay, like, you could add a lot of kind of accessories into it. It's like haptic vests. It does add to the experience. You can add tracking. You can add wrist tracking, ankle tracking. You can have full body avatars. You can have AI characters. You could have hand tracking. You could support larger play spaces. You could have modular play spaces. Lots of kind of things. And things always there's always an amount of trade-off between it. We've always kind of wanted things to be nice and clear for our operators, and be like, okay, these experiences can run on their own. I just kind of get players going and then hit spacebar. Games run by themselves, and hints and everything else in the game is fully taken care of by the system. Or you can actually curate the experience. You can have your staff deliver the briefing. You can customize the hints. You can add your own story. There's lots of kind of ways of cutting it. And if we were to kind of add new features, we want to make sure that it significantly adds to the experience without causing a hassle. It's like, oh, okay, oh yeah, we can't get you in the experience anymore because this device isn't connecting here, or a reason we haven't added full body avatars is a lot of we don't have tracking on the foot or on the hips and things like that, and that adds operational complexity. And if you don't get it well, it just takes you out of the experience because people are always skating around, crouching, things like that. So yeah, we're certainly looking at where the tech continues to go. Streaming looks to be getting stronger. We have some interest around like mixed reality, because Meta's pushing hard into it. Apple Vision Pro's pushing into it. And it's like, okay, is there something here? Is there a way to look at it? And there's kind of other places you can put virtual reality as well. Like, I wonder if like hospitality might be an interesting place for virtual reality, where you have like a much more dedicated, exclusive environment, and like, oh, okay, let's go do something that's familiar and something new. So that's the nice thing kind of with escape rooms. With vrCAVE, it draws in the escape room crowd and draws in the gamer crowd. So it's the boxes for that. And we're always kind of looking at adjacent markets as well. It's if you're not developing a brand new market, it's always helpful. So people have done escape rooms. Okay, let's do a virtual escape room version. I think there's lots of places that could be explored elsewhere, like laser tag might make a lot of sense. Where it's like, okay, can you bring in enough cool things on the virtual reality side to really make a 10x improvement and really leverage the technology while also building the familiarity from laser tag? And there's a bunch of kind of other entertainment experiences that could be there as well. I'd say amongst all the stuff we'll be looking at is still very much be in the entertainment space, and that's our bread and butter and where we want to stay.
Yeah, so you just mentioned 10x, and and there's a guy, Jim Kessler, who runs Lasertron, one of my early laser tag competitors, who 30 years later is still selling laser tag guns. And he's a big 10x guy. Like, how do you improve something 10x? And I heard you mention that, and I think it's clear to me and clear to you how VR elevates the escape business by an order of magnitude. But maybe tick off like just the top 5 things that might be obvious to us, but somebody new watching this might not actually understand.
Yeah. So I'd say when we founded vrCAVE, we did a full 30-page business plan and looked at kind of where the value add would be with virtual reality. And I'd say going through the exercise of a business plan is always really good. So when we looked at it for escape rooms, it's like, okay, what are the biggest gripes of it? It's like, okay, there's a large kind of upfront fee for putting an escape room together. They start at $30,000 up to $50,000. You can either even spend up to $100,000 or $200,000 on an escape room, and that's factoring both in the costs, the build out, the labor, the creative design, all that stuff. So lots of expense kind of goes into the escape room, and you can get started much cheaper with a VR escape room. And then just like maintenance, you have room resets. You have clues that walk out on you. And then if you have like an escape room business, you have 3 rooms, you have awesome kind of customer care, awesome marketing. They come in, they do the 3 rooms, like, okay, do you have anything else? Nope, that's it. Okay, well, let me know when you have a new one. And then that customer is out the door and maybe will never come back. And if you get room fatigue, it's like, okay, I got to take this one out, which costs money to take out, costs money to put a new one in, opportunity costs in the meantime, and then will the new one do as well as the previous one? So that's part of the reason why we kind of put in that new escape room every year. So you can look at like a single physical piece of real estate being one kind of arena, and you can have that same customer come back 9 times for 9 different escape room experiences. Yeah. And so super valuable there and stuff as well.
What's the most rooms anyone runs of vrCAVE in one location?
So I'd say 4 arenas would be the most we've seen, and 3 arenas is a couple, and then 2 arenas actually does surprisingly well. It does more than double of a single room. I think.
Wow.
I think it does closer to like 250, 300% better than a single room. I suspect it's because if you have 2 rooms, you can support larger parties. So like you have a bachelor party come in, it's like, okay, there's 9 of us. Okay. You guys are both going into Pirate's Plague. You'll be room A, you'll be room B. See who beats the game first. So you can host those kind of larger groups and stuff. So that's kind of, it seems like 2 is the magic number, at least kind of when it comes to our VR escape rooms.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't have. I'm surprised more people aren't doing more rooms, but the 2 number, that metric is really insightful. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, biggest lesson as a founder.
Everything takes twice as long and twice as expensive as you expect.
Okay, I'll take that one to heart. And what advice, besides raising twice as much money for your startup, what advice would you give a business founder entering this, particularly the VR business?
I would say half of everything is sales. So having a great product, having great technology, very helpful. But people need to know you exist. You got to get the marketing in there. You got to be priced. You got to know who your people are, who your players are. I got to be able to draw them in, have a good location for that, great customer experience, and then they go into the experience, they play the games, and then they come out. It's like, okay, they're still your customer. Is there a way to capture them again, so that you can be like, okay, tell you what, if you come back to play this other game, get $5 off for your group, or like, oh, here's a coupon, or here's a stamp card. Lots of kind of things to keep people coming in. And I'd say if you kind of like, even just marketing budget wise, besides having double of what you think, the initial part of kind of the marketing as well, like you got to do things that are unsustainable, but gets the word out, builds your brand. Like, oh, okay, this is a location that takes care of their customers, build their reviews, build the word of mouth. Still the most important thing out there. So you can do things that are unsustainable at the beginning, and then kind of make it more scalable and process ties it later and systematize it later.
Yeah, that's great advice. Question just came in. Is it better to have unique new content or to have sequel continuing stories and plot, which kind of ties into the whole storytelling thing, which was one of the questions I wanted to get into and we didn't, but so we'll just tackle it now since people seem to be hanging in there. How do you view storytelling as in this, and how do you view potentially serialization of games and stories? Have you ever thought about a chapter 2 of something?
Very much so. It's I'd say one of the thoughts we have is like, oh, okay, Space Station Tiberia could use a second episode or something, and we were thinking maybe it could have like a prequel to the Space Station experience. We ended up kind of actually, as Space Station Tiberia being our first one, we've since extended kind of the length of the content, so we actually just added a new escape room back in 2022 for it. I think one thing we're careful on kind of with serialization stuff, well, it's very cool from a narrative perspective. We're always careful on the player base, where it's like, okay, I can't play Space Station Tiberia 2 because I haven't played number 1 yet. So that second game is locked until they do the first one. Now if the players feel that they're disconnected enough and they can play either one, then maybe there's a case for it. But there's a case where you can make a bunch of content and players will never kind of get access to it. I recall there's a case with BioWare's Mass Effect game. They kind of have two paths, good and evil, or Paragon and it's going to drive me nuts. Anyways, good and evil, and like 70% of people play basically the good side, or kind of the that side, and then they won't play the game again. And so like the whole chunk of content that was created is never touched by much of the player base. So it's like, oh, okay, that's a bit of a kind of cautionary tale of like, choice is good, but only if they feel they have no friction in order to kind of play those games. So serialization, I think, would be cool, but I think just having a unique game every time has kind of worked so well for us.
Yeah, and I think it does tend to drive the development cost up when you're talking about two different sides. A lot of people ask me about branch storylines, and I go back to the Bandersnatch episode of Black Mirror, which was awesome, but cost them 3 times more than what a normal episode would cost, and they're like, yeah, we're never doing that again. So I think just because it's cool doesn't make it a good business. Yeah, cool. So do you have what's next? Do you have anything that's imminent? You're getting ready to release Alien Infections for the standalone headsets. Is that out yet?
Yeah, just was released this week.
Okay, awesome.
Alien Infection, our 9th escape room, is now available on all the on standalone headsets, so MetaQuest, Vive Focus, Pico 4 Ultra Enterprise was just added as well. The next game is in development as well, early planning stages, and it's like okay, and we'll be going into testing in that kind of over the summer into the fall as well with that. So that'll be coming to PC VR late this year. Always kind of looking at new things there. And then lots of kind of things are kind of available on the horizon. There's no shortage of opportunities. And yeah, well, there's a thing I can share that I've kind of taken to heart as well, where it's like, quote I heard where the difference between you and Warren Buffett is that you get 10 opportunities a year and you pursue 6 of them. And Warren Buffett gets 100 opportunities a year and pursues 1 of them. So always a case of kind of paring down the opportunities and stuff. So there's things that we can be looking at, like different kind of gameplay designs. Nice thing kind of with our escape rooms is that we're able to kind of stay within the kind of core escape room gameplay mechanics, but then also explore some adjacent one where it's like, okay, let's have asymmetric gameplay with different playable characters. Runaway Train actually has guns and pistols in it, which both is a bit of a shooter, but also solving problems with guns is a unique way of it. So looking at kind of options for kind of other things to explore next to it. Is there other intellectual property we could look at? Maybe, if the opportunity seems right. That one has much nuance to it, where it's like, are you finding the right intellectual property that your player base wants and can expand the player base? So like if, well, some would be very cool to work with. Some would be like, oh, okay, this is a well-known thing, but if I would just throw it like Marvel Avengers, that's nice and popular. It's like, okay, could you make an escape game with it? You could. If people see Marvel Avengers presents this, it's like, oh, you would expect it to be action. And it's like, okay. And that's not quite an escape room experience. So yeah, we're looking at options, maybe on the IP side, maybe kind of continue our own stuff. And a thing we kind of ask every time with our con is like, okay, why VR? Why is this experience improved by the technology of virtual reality? And we've seen some games that's like, oh, okay, this is the VR version of X. And it's like, you guys are leaving things off on the table, where it's like, oh, you could have had a deeper experience if you kind of leveraged both what VR can bring and also this kind of known entity elsewise.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And the IP can be a double-edged sword too, because it adds a lot of cost and complexity to the development. And if it's not going to grow the audience, and if it's not going to generate revenue for your operators and for you beyond the extra cost of development, it can be one of those shiny objects that would be fun to do, but can definitely backfire. I've seen that happen a lot. So cool. Any last words or thoughts you want to close with?
Well, it's been a pleasure to be on the show, and you can always find out more about vrCAVE, vrcave.io. And if you have any questions about the industry or just want to chat or anything we chatted about today, always happy to have a conversation.
And if somebody wants to connect with you on social media, do you have a preferred platform where you're active?
I'd say probably LinkedIn is a good place, but if they even come in through vrCAVE and contact form and stuff, those will always find their way filtered to me as well. So awesome. But yeah, LinkedIn is a great way to reach and connect with me there as well.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate the the gold. There's a ton of insights in this, Alex, and congratulations on your success and continued success. I have no doubt you've definitely gotten to the point where you're one of the leaders in the industry, and everybody's watching what you're doing, and yeah, just keep doing great work.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. That is it for this version of Being Virtual Deep Dive. Stay tuned. We're going to be doing a lot of operator interviews coming up that we'll be posting on the VR Collective. We'll be posting them on LinkedIn, YouTube. Some will be live, some will be recorded, but just keep an eye out. We're going to go deep, 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 deep this year with people who are actually making money, operating VR successfully around the world with different formats, and there'll be a bunch of vrCAVE operators in there as well. So stay tuned. Make sure you're signed up to the VR Collective website at thevrcollective.com to get notifications of all of these live webinars. They come through the Inside VR newsletter, and if you're not getting that, you're crazy. This is Bob Cooney, and I really appreciate you guys showing up, and we'll see you next time.